Hello, my name is Andy and I am the Village Idiot. I'm armed with a car and a GoPro and an unhealthy amount of time on my hands. I'm using that time to attempt to visit every civil parish in England. You're watching the North Warwickshire series, a borough with 33 parishes right at the northern tip of Shakespeare's county. Let's dive in and see where we are today. Welcome back to the borough of North Warwickshire, everybody. Now, I'm sure you've all heard of a place on the south coast called Newton Regis. Well, here in Warwickshire, there's another place that has Regis as its suffix. Welcome to Newton Regis. Here's my disclaimer for people who may be watching me for the first time. I say things as I would in my native accent and dialect. As a result, I may not pronounce things in the same way as the locals do. Remember, I'm a visitor. It's impossible to know everything. Leave me a comment, spin me a like and bash that subscribe button. Let's get to today's parish video. Round 2 in North Warwickshire brings us to Newton Regis, one of several settlements up and down the nation to have the word Regis attached to the end of it. Seeing as this is the first time we've ever come across it, let's discuss its meaning. Regis is a royal term, it's Latin and it means of the king. The name usually recalls the historical ownership of lands or manors by the crown or honours royal associations. Newton Regis was not mentioned in the Domesday Book, and so its earliest history can only be traced as far back as the mid-12th century. Despite that, the Domesday Book does record that nearby Seckington held 2.5 hides, or units of land, that covered the area Newton Regis now occupies. There have been many landowners here through the ages. In the 18th and 19th centuries, two landowning families, namely the Burdetts and the Ings, owned most of what Newton Regis is today. The modern village is laid out along one main road with a few side streets. Features here include a village hall, a church, and a pub which stands in front of a magnificent village pond, whilst the parish also includes the small village of No Man's Heath. It's the most northerly in the whole of Warwickshire and one with a unique little tale behind it. Come with me as we explore it all and put Newton Regis on the map. We begin our journey around Newton Regis in a small village called No Man's Heath, which some of you may already know about. I made a Tales from the Village Green episode about this place a while ago. It used to sit within 4 different counties of England. Nowadays it's wholly within Warwickshire, but there are a couple of references to its historic standing, including this building. This is Four Counties Spice, which used to be the village's pub. It used to be called the Four Counties Inn. It's next door to Four Counties Garage. The 4 counties in question are Warwickshire, Derbyshire, Staffordshire and Leicestershire. The boundaries were redrawn in 1965. The name No Man's Heath is literally a reference to what this place once was, a heathland belonging to, well, nobody. Nowadays, it's the responsibility of Newton Regis, Seckington and No Man's Heath Parish Council, and here is a parish notice board. No Man's Heath has a small church dedicated to St Mary. It has a chancel, a nave and a bell turret, built in the Perpendicular style. Made of brick, St Mary's has been here since 1863, however it's no longer an active church. It was made redundant in 2009. The churchyard is still open to the public though, and what's more, we can use this as a shortcut to get to Ash Lane. A fun fact before we leave No Man's Heath behind, this village is the most northerly settlement in the whole of Warwickshire. The B5493 upon which it sits runs parallel to the county boundary and connects the village to junction 11 of the M42. Okay, so that's No Man's Heath. Now let's go to Newton Regis now, which is the main parish that this one falls into. It's just a few miles to the west, so we'll hop in the car and we'll check out Newton Regis next. Our main walk begins at a telephone exchange on King's Lane. This and the word Regis are references to royal ownership. They commemorate the ownership of the village by Henry II. It was alternatively known as the less punchy Newton in the Thistles. At the end of the road you'll find yourself on Ostry Lane. Now beware, because there are two Ostry lanes in this village. We'll see the other one later. On this one we have Newton Regis C of E Primary School, which opened in 1995. Nearby is a bus stop. Newton Regis is served by the 785, which is a circular service that begins and ends in Tamworth town centre. Ostry Lane is mostly residential between here and the eastern end of the village, but for where the road bends to the south. On that bend is Newton Regis Village Hall, the centre of the community and the location of the village's post office. The venue for many a village event, it was built in 2005 following a campaign to replace a very dilapidated former village hall. Thistle Bowls Club used this as their winter venue. Next to it there's a playing field, a playground and these tennis courts too. So for the first time on the channel we're somewhere that's close to Birmingham, and in the playground just there was a little child, can't have been any older than about 4 or 5, and he had this perfect Brummy accent. First time I've heard it while I've been filming, and it was just it just made me think, you know, Birmingham's not too far away and I'm going to be hearing that around this area, aren't I, as I film these episodes. I'm not going to try and do a Brummy accent myself. I've been told that I can do quite a decent one, but I don't want to embarrass myself. Anyway, moving on. So now we're going to follow a footpath which crosses this field, and you can see in the distance the church right there. That is our next landmark. After crossing the field, the spire of St Mary's Church grows ever larger on the horizon with every step along the footpath. It passes to the rear of the school where you can see it a bit more clearly. As well as being a primary school, this is also a nursery. Here we are then at the church. Like its parochial counterpart in Ostry, St Mary's dates mainly from the 13th and 14th centuries. Historically speaking, Newton Regis's church was originally a chapel of ease, linked to an earlier church at Seckington. Among its features there's a squint or leper window, a 15th century gravestone of a priest and some fine stained glass. The Lick Gate is well worth a mention as well. This was built in 1928 and it acts as Newton Regis's World War I war memorial. In front of the church there's a notice board, so out came the cards once again. Mark it off folks, 31 to go in North Warwickshire. Now this is where the second of the two Ostry lanes comes into play. It's a dead-end spur which runs south from the church. This area confused me for a short while because I was looking for one building in particular. Eventually, I think I found it. Currently empty and becoming overgrown, I believe this to be the old village hall, although I wasn't 100% sure. So as village centres go, this one's very pretty, isn't it? With the old buildings and the church towering above everything. Now for the rest of the walk, Newton Regis is, generally speaking, a linear settlement. So as you can see here, we're going to follow this road past these new builds that are going up just here. I will take a right turn up there because there's a street I want to catch off to the right, and then I'll turn around and come back. Not a very big place, Newton Regis, but certainly one of great interest. Let's continue down Main Road now, sticking mainly to the left-hand side. There's some more historic buildings coming up. One of them is the Manor House. This was built in 1718 and is one of 12 Grade II listed buildings in Newton Regis Parish. Not far away is this big white house. This used to be the village's post office at one time, and it still retains its old postbox. Next are two thatched cottages. These were reputedly 17th century stables, which have now been converted into dwellings. On the opposite side is Institute House. What kind of institute this was, I don't know, but it's now a private residence. Once beyond the institute, the road starts to taper off into the countryside, save for a right turn in a moment up Seckington Lane. That's where we're headed, but not before I took the opportunity to admire the beautiful Warwickshire countryside from here. Now we've turned onto Seckington Lane, and here's Newton Fields, a cul-de-sac with a collection of much more modern houses. Next to it there's a field which is crisscrossed by a number of footpaths. The one we want runs to Hames Lane. This forms a neat little loop which emerges back onto Main Road down the side of the institute as we head back towards the start. Now, given the royal connections in this place, it's no surprise that there are plenty of things around here with King or Queen in their name. That's another one there, King's Cottage. I'm going to take you to another one now, the pub, the Queen's Head. I've saved the best bits until last here. On the other side of Main Road, there's an old red phone box housing a defib machine. It stands in front of Newton Regis's one and only pub, the Queen's Head, and as you can see, the Queen in question is Victoria. The building dates from the 16th century. It's a compact village local which manages to pack in a lot of diners and drinkers. In front of it there's a lovely thatched building which screams Warwickshire all ends up. This is the 17th century Pool Cottage. Its name is a reference to the village pond, which is where the local ducks live. This board warns passing traffic of their ducklings. The ducks cross the road often, causing the traffic to wait. This reminded me a bit of the many meres in the East Riding. And between the pond and King's Lane, I just took a couple more shots of some of the other houses on Main Road. The further east you go, the more modern they become as a rule of thumb, with the older historic core around the pond. Okay, we've reached it back to King's Lane, where we began. There's one more thing I would like to include in this Newton Regis episode, and that's a garden centre. So let's hop in the car and go and find that to finish. Just before we go to the garden centre, here's a local legend for you, one which I do express a certain amount of doubt over its truthfulness. Newton Regis's connection with kings apparently doesn't stop with its name. The legend, which is often told in these parts, says that King Charles I prayed at the church in Newton Regis on the way to the Battle of Seckington. This cannot be true though, as the Battle of Seckington happened in the 8th century, a full 800 plus years before Charles I was even born. There are also no records which prove conclusively that Charles I was ever present in this part of Warwickshire, let alone going into battle. The story of the King's visit was first printed in Arthur Mee's Warwickshire, published in the King's England series in 1946. Personally, I would dismiss it as a mistake, but even so, by repetition a story gains credence, true or not. That's why the locals here in Newton Regis remain steadfastly convinced that he was here. Our last task is to visit Newton Regis Garden Centre, which is located a little way southeast of the main village. Perhaps a cartographic anomaly, this addresses itself as being off Shuttington Lane, although Google Maps shows it to be a continuation of Main Road. Whatever the case may be, this is a popular little location. It's open 7 days a week and has everything you need for the garden and the home, from gorgeous houseplants to garden landscaping. It also features the Coffee Haven restaurant, which serves a variety of meals and an amazing range of cakes and desserts. Its on-site parking is modern too, as it has 3 high-powered electric car chargers. And from here, it's off we go to the north up Hangman's Lane towards the next one. Do join me for that one, folks, because next week we'll be looking at a place which features a castle mound and some funny looking wooden lodges. Interesting. I'll see you there. Thanks for watching this video, folks. Don't forget to like this episode if you haven't already. It really makes a difference with YouTube. If you're new here, subscribe to the channel for more videos like this, and give us a share too if you've got friends who'd like it. You can find all the links to my social media accounts below, as well as my Buy Me a Coffee page where you can donate to the channel. Also, if you've enjoyed this episode, have a look at some more videos in this series. Until next time, I've been Andy, also known as the Village Idiot, and I'm out.